From deep within our hidden volcano laboratory, a podcast about gaming from the people who bring your games to life. These are your core elements. Core Elements, episode 58, recorded on March 13th, 2014. I am Wes Wilson, and once again, we don't have a Spencer Williams with us, which is terribly, terribly sad. But we do have Ziba Scott with us, who has been on the show before, and some people may know you as Pop Cannibal.
Yes, I know myself as that.
Is that how you address yourself?
All the time. My wife loves it.
And we brought you on because you are now working with Dejobaan Games. Is that how they pronounce that, Dejobaan?
Dejobaan, yeah.
And you guys are working on a project together called Elegy for a Dead World, and it really caught my attention.
It's the weirdest thing ever.
Well, tell us about it. Tell us what is unique about this game and why it is the weirdest thing ever.
So Elegy is a game where you write. And there are a lot of games where you write, but this is a game, like Typing for the Dead or Zor, some text adventure. But this is where it's all about being a writer. So you want the elevator pitch?
Sure. Hold on just one second. My Skype connection suddenly got really crappy. Let me double check my... What do you mean the connection speed is slow? Okay, I'm going to call you right back.
All right. Salutations.
Okay. So let's have you talk again.
This time use less bandwidth with my voice.
Well, I need to turn you up. You're at a different level than you were last time.
Check baby, 1, 2.
Excellent. Okay. So let's go through that again.
Okay, so Elegy for a Dead World. It's a game about writing. 3 unstable portals have opened to long dead civilizations. Humanity gets all excited and sends the best they've got. Xenobiologists, historians, archaeologists, everybody including a poet. Unfortunately, only you, the poet, survived the trip. So you are the only eyes humanity will ever have on these civilizations before they disappear forever. And you, for these civilizations, you're their last voice, the only thing that will keep them from being forgotten entirely. So it's your responsibility to witness, observe, imagine, and discover what they were about, and write your story, write their story, and send it back to Earth.
Was there any Speaker for the Dead kind of thought processes that went on when coming up with the concept for this game?
Well, that was the name we wanted for the game, but we couldn't. We had a lot of difficulty coming with a name, and if that hadn't been taken, that would have been perfect.
Yeah.
But it's actually, as far as sci-fi influences, that wasn't even primary. It was Rendezvous with Rama that was really on our minds. If you've read that one.
I have not.
Arthur C. Clarke's. It's a great Arthur C. Clarke book where basically a big empty cylinder shows up in our solar system, and people go to check it out, and it's just the most puzzling, weird stuff inside, and they spend most of the book just wandering around trying to figure out what is this, and the book it's really gripping as you try and puzzle yourself. What am I seeing? It's a really great exercise in imagination.
Well, and I think that's like, I took an art history class in college, and I only took it because I was required to, but what I thought was the most fascinating thing about it was my teacher spent a lot of time pondering how can we learn about this culture from the things that they left behind. For instance, what can we know about Minoan civilization? There's very little writing about it, but we can know a lot about it by looking at what they produced and the kind of things that they made. And that's kind of a real interesting take on things where, like, Like when pondering how to put this together, where does one ponder how to make the game? Like how did you think about grading poetry as a game?
Right. So the real trick of this game, I could just hand you a pad of paper and a pen and say, write me a story and say we're playing this game. The real trick is sort of setting the environment, the atmosphere, and encouraging people to participate with their entire imagination. And so what we try to do is make enough specific choices that people can play off of those and attach to those without making too many choices for them, such that the story writes itself.
Right. Well, that's really cool. And you guys have been doing some other games over there as well. They just released Drunken Robot Pornography. Were you involved with that one at all?
Oh, just as a playtester around the office.
And it's funny because so many people that I've introduced that game to have been like, that is they don't, before they see the game, they're like, I don't know if I want to play that. How many, what has been the playtesting response to people when they get the name and then when they get the game?
Well, Ichiro's got some magic when it comes to naming things. He doesn't care how long it is; it's going to be a good name. I think there's a good synergy between sort of the energy and the the freedom of the name of, I don't care if it's saucy. That's ridiculous. Life is meant to be saucy, and there's a synergy between that and what that game turns out to be. It's just brightly colored, high energy, constant slap in the face, which is I think they work together well.
Yeah, I did poke around with it a little bit before the show, and someone in the chat room actually said that the opening theme song was better than Still Alive.
Yeah, Ichiro does a lot of this himself. I don't know about which point, but a lot of the stuff, you'll hear his voice in his games. He does a great job. He pours himself into these.
Yeah, and he had another game that came out recently, Monster Loves You. What's the deal with that game?
So that was a collaboration with him and Andy Moore, a great Canadian game maker, and John Elliott, who also did some early stuff on Elegy. It's sort of a choose your own monster life adventure type thing where you're presented with, these adorable drawings and art and these options for how do you want to behave as a monster growing up, and how do you want to spend your time being fearless or being a leader or biting people or sitting in goo, things that monsters do.
Sitting in goo, you have that as an option?
Maybe.
And now your game just it just got onto Steam, is that correct?
Yeah, we launched Valentine's Day actually on Steam with Girls Like Robots.
That was well placed.
Well, we invented that sale. We contacted Steam and said, hey, you do anything for Valentine's? They said no. And so we sent them a mock-up of the store with a bunch of Valentine's imagery for this is what a Valentine's sale could look like. And they said, sure, send us the PSDs, we'll do it.
That is so hilarious. And you were actually on our show, and of course I don't have the episode number off the top of my head, but you were on the show before to talk about the game, and I spent probably a good week buried in your game, and really enjoyed it. You said you have some new content coming out for Girls Love Robots.
Yeah, so we're actually this Monday coming up, going to release a big free update with total face editing. The Faceamizer, so you can, it's a puzzle game where all the pieces are these adorable faces, but we've added a whole bunch of different varieties and textures to the faces so that you can give all the characters mustaches or eye patches or face scars and things, which sounds really superficial. It's just decorating stuff, but this is a game where recognizing who somebody is core to it.
Right.
So you're actually really screwing with your own perception of the game.
And are you going to make a thing where you can scan in your own face and put it on your game eventually?
I'd like to. I was thinking about that for some mobile versions, but I like making games so much. I'd like to eventually make new ones. I've been polishing up Girls Like Robots for 2.5 years now, and I really love it. But I've got other plans.
Well, that's an interesting question. When do you get sick of your own game?
It is a very concerted effort to never let myself say I'm tired of this, because if I open that door, it's just gone. Like, so I say I love Girls Like Robots, and I'm happy to still working on it. Don't question me too much deeper on that.
Excellent. Well, we will talk some more about you, what you're working on, and everything a little bit later. But first, lab notes. So I would like to say that I have been gaming incredibly over the last 2 weeks, but I have not. I've kind of focused on a few particular things. The first being Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which I am using as a soft, comforting blanket to warm me back up to gaming after taking a little bit of a break from it. It's kind of hard to describe, but something about Assassin's Creed feels plush. Like, it's like everything's going to be okay, Wes. This is the game you want to play, and I don't have anything to argue with about it. Like, I play, there's nothing that annoys me about it other than the fact that it's so big. I kind of wish that I could distill it down to a, 10-hour experience, but I'm so obsessive compulsive about all the little icons on the map that I can't just walk away with them right there. I can't do it. So I have a feeling I'm going to go ahead and put a good 30 hours into Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and see how that goes. But it is my getting back into gaming game. However, I did pick up Titanfall, which I had mocked people for being so hyped about, and then I get it. I get it. I understand why people are excited about this game. It really is a very good shooter, and the dynamics of for those who don't know, Titanfall is basically a futuristic Call of Duty, but you can also call in your mech to drop into the battlefield and you can take it over and get involved. And it provides a really interesting 2-layer game where there is intersection between the two. There is the mech game where it is mech versus mech, and there is the player game, which is pilot versus pilot. But at the same time, when you're in the mech, you can't ignore the humans, and when you're a human, you can't ignore the mechs, and both of them are able to hurt each other sufficiently for it not to become two completely separate games. It's high speed, it's clean, it's got beautiful graphics, and I get it. Have you poked around with it at all, Ziba?
No, but I have been wondering, did they provide a sufficient reason why you're not always in a mech?
Yes. Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is it's just like a tank. You can take tanks into certain places, but at the same time, if you have a bunch of humans armed with anti-tank weapons, your tank is going to be toast anyway. So there's a dual. There are good reasons to be in your mech and good reasons not to be in your mech. I actually played my first few matches without getting in my mech because I just didn't want to go that direction yet. I just wanted to get the hang of going around and shooting individuals. There are also some spawned enemies, which is a little frustrating because, you're playing a PvP game and you run around the corner and you see somebody there and you shoot them and you're so excited. You're like, yeah, I got a kill. And then you notice their name tag and it's just a computer opponent. And you're like, no! And they're stupider. And but at the same time, like, you still get points for them, but it also makes you feel bad because you're like, I wanted a person kill. I wanted to feel like I'd killed an individual. I normally don't care for first-person military shooters all that much. So please understand that this is actually a big vote of confidence for this game. Are you a military shooters guy?
I respect them, but I haven't played too many.
It's one of those genres that just got so wanky that I didn't really want to be in it.
Yeah, I was playing like COD Blops, and mowing down hundreds and hundreds of Vietnamese. I couldn't get past the level, and I married into a Vietnamese family, and it just got a little too real for me.
Oh yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, I'm not necessarily sure I want to be fighting real enemies and real people. That doesn't seem pleasant to me. But yeah, I have been playing Titanfall with Spencer as well. That has been kind of a kick. We're actually doing some gaming together. I streamed the other night for the first time in forever. And so yeah, I gotta recommend Titanfall. You should probably pick it up. I also have been poking around with Guild Wars 2. They're finishing off their big, like, living world storyline for the past year. It's been cool, but it's funny that a big MMO can still release updates that have major bugs in them. The main boss fight in that was not dropping her loot, and that's a pretty big bug. And I'm a little surprised that ArenaNet got out with it, and I'm also a little surprised that so many people tolerated it. But I think that's something to say for the Guild Wars 2 community, because it is a very positive community. They love the game. They love the fact that they don't have to pay a subscription fee. They're willing to cut some slack for that. Oh yeah, and Cheddarface in the chat room wanted me to point out that I'm also playing with Random Inuyasha and Cheddarface. So we've actually been grouping together, and I am sometimes not the worst person of the group. Lastly, in order to get back into PvP, and because we have the big Smite tournament coming up at the end of the month and Game Vid Expo, which I've been prepping heavy for, I have been picking up Smite again and trying to do my dailies in that. I picked up the Poseidon skin, which is Poseidon, but with a water noodle and a mask and flippers.
Nice.
And the really delightful part is, I don't know if you remember that internet meme that was going around with the big inflatable duck in the middle of the lake, and it said "Release the Kraken." Well, the Poseidon's ultimate in that is a kraken, and so now he releases a big giant inflatable duck raft, and it makes me happy. And I got level 3 with or mastery level 3 with him, and it has made me enjoy it. So, Ziba, what have you been playing?
So much for little bits at a time. I knew you'd ask. I wrote it down, so don't forget. Finally getting into New Vegas. I know I'm late on the train. I'm late on the train to most things. Train, bus, whatever it is. I really actually very much disliked Fallout 3. New Vegas is making up for a bit of that.
Well, now that's interesting. What did you dislike about Fallout 3?
Well, I mean, primarily it's the same thing. I always look at all Bethesda's engine. In fact, Morrowind, Oblivion. It's those dead cold eyes of everybody in the world staring at me. It's basically this tremendously huge amount of data in the world. I really applaud them for creating these big, rich, filled worlds, and then just dropping the ball in terms of theatrical presentation.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Like, it feels like half a game to me, and a lot of times. I mean, much respect to a lot of it, but just how can you create such a beautiful, detailed world and all these great stories, and then just sort of have the camera zoom in, flatten, dead eyes, straight at you, wall of text every time. I don't know. It just kills me. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like worst use of Patrick Stewart ever for Oblivion. Like, come on.
It's funny. I really liked Fallout 3. But I have a problem that when I complete a game, no matter how much there is left to do, I will put it down. And so I deliberately kept putting off the plot in Fallout 3, and the end of the game snuck up on me. And I finished it, and there was a good third of the map I had never touched, and I knew what I was going to do, and it happened. I didn't touch that third of the map after I did it. But you're enjoying New Vegas. Now, I get to games late a lot, so I absolutely understand what you're saying about this. What are you enjoying right now about New Vegas?
That's sort of the mystery to me. It's just like Fallout, but I think it must be the pacing. Maybe they just spent a little bit better time making sure I could follow the factions and the story and move through things a little better. Or maybe I've just grown up as a gamer and I'm acquiring a taste for it or something. But
I just enjoyed like the mixture of the dynamics of the concept of Vegas as an element in the story, layered on what was a pretty good story. That's what impressed me about that game.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the next rev on their engine and their efforts are really more about an increase in theatrical presentation quality. You know, the stuff that the Mass Effect series just did with camera angle changes when people were talking is fantastic. You know, you get characters, you get this line of sight between eyeballs, and it's just it just brings so much to it.
So what else are you playing?
I'll pick some of the weirder ones. I've been playing the Game of Thrones RPG, which has sort of been universally panned.
Yeah, I've heard terrible things about it.
Yeah, and so I'm like halfway through the second book reading it, and yeah, the game does so many things wrong. I'm guessing a lot not from ill intent or incompetence, just lack of time and budget or something. But you know, the mechanics of the RPG mechanics just sort of fall flat. I don't know, menu systems and other things aren't great. UI interface, but it really does have sort of an authentic feel, a real flair of the world. And so if you're interested in just sort of, you know, the way those stories and characters spin around and the power plays and things like that from the books and the show, this game is delivering a good hit of that, and I appreciate that.
Are you interested in the Telltale Game of Thrones that's going to come out? Do you mess with any of the Telltale games?
I'm a fan of Telltale. I haven't played as many as I want, but yeah. I'm still just dipping my toe. I haven't never seen the show. To be hipster, I've only read the book. So I'm still just sort of dipping my toes in the whole thing a little bit. I'm not ready to go out and start wearing a Game of Thrones t-shirt. But I am enjoying the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've wanted to pick up something Game of Thrones, but I've heard nothing but bad things about everything that's been put out about it. And so, like, I didn't touch that one. I might pick it up at a Steam sale, though.
I think I got it in a bundle. I don't even know how. It was sitting in my Steam library. Where did this? I have no idea where this came from. Let's give it a go.
So, what else are you poking around with?
I just finished Dear Esther. Sort of required playing when you're making an art game like I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think? Like, my issue with the game, I think that I loved it on the level of the presentation, because I feel like it was kind of groundbreaking for its time, and that the games that have come after it have sort of, you know, like Gone Home have sort of polished that concept a little bit better. But I thought it was biting off a lot, and at the same time, like, kind of handed off some things in a way that I might not have done were I an indie designer.
I thought I was actually really surprised by the level of the level design, just sort of the physical space of everything. I think that may be one of the things I appreciated most was getting to enjoy this space that felt alive because of the story and narrative being delivered through it. It didn't feel like I was just loading up an empty, you know, a non-game file and going through a modeling program. I felt like I was in a place, but I didn't, and this is rare, I got to explore a beautiful cave without always being on the lookout for some sort of orc that I need to stab with a sword to get 3 gold coins or bubblegum or whatever it's carrying.
Yeah.
So it was a pleasant way to really throw myself into a physical space in a relaxed way.
I also enjoyed the fact that I wasn't always constantly trying to look in every corner for the secret or the flag or the feather, or, you know, like, I really do think that in order to add extra content to games and in order to provide some level of inclusion for the people who really get into, finding all the things, we've gotten into an area where sometimes it's difficult for people to enjoy what is going on the screen for worry that they're missing some small detail that is just off of the screen.
Right. Well, your joy, not to take away your joy in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but the way you described it made it sound less like the joy of playing a game and more like the satisfaction you get from popping every bubble in bubble wrap.
And that is a little bit of what I'm enjoying about Assassin's Creed 3. Now, luckily, I feel like that game sort of puts all the bubble wrap bubbles in a neat little package so that you feel like each one you push is special, when, for the most part, they really aren't.
Oh, imagine bubble wrap where each one is special. A different scent, maybe a little ink pouch.
Exactly. That's some thought process. Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I guess I should share some of my disappointment in I don't know what was this game called? The sequel to 999. Did you play 999 for the DS?
No, I'm not a mobile gamer for the most part.
Nine doors, 9 rooms, 9 something or other. Anyway, so 999 is the game. It's just brilliant. Basically a sort of visual novel puzzle type thing. I don't know. Basically, you hold your DS sideways the whole time and spend reading and make a few choices and solve locked room puzzles, which doesn't sound that great, but it was just the most compelling mystery, weird story of characters. I really was excited about it. And then a sequel came out for the 3DS and dropped the ball. I'm sorry. It was just it's weird, over tutorial, fugly. I don't know. Sorry if the developers are listening.
No, it's
First one was
okay.
great, guys.
Like, and that's just it. Like, I mean, not everything is going to resonate with everybody. Spencer usually has Spencer hates BioShock Infinite. He thinks it's a terrible game. Pretty, but terrible. So I don't mind. I don't mind covering things and saying we did not enjoy it. What now? You say it had locked room puzzles. What the 999 did? That always kind of interests me. Like, what kind of layout did that have in that game?
I mean, I liked it, which is strange because it's hypocritical to me because it's exactly what I hate about like the early Resident Evil series. Of like, I'm going to make a strange mansion, and to get out of this room, you got to play the Moonlight Sonata and find the gem and stick it in a painting and twist it. Like, who the hell would set this up? This makes absolutely no sense. But in 999, that's sort of the part of it. You're if you've seen the movies, the Cube 2, Hypercube, these Canadian horror films, you're kind of in a trap like that, and you are trying to figure out how to get out of the trap. And why the hell does this trap exist? Who would do this to me? Why are these people selected to be here?
Well, that sounds excellent. Anything else?
Shout out to Roller Derby Disco Dodgeball. Damn it, I said it wrong. Robot Roller Derby Disco Dodgeball. I told him just to call it Disco Dodgeball. You remember this? Eric Asmussen's working on it. He's had a lot of he's been working the social networks pretty well on this one. He put out a lot of free keys on Reddit. He's about to go live on Steam. Made it through Greenlight pretty fast. It's a dodgeball game where you're robots in a disco and you're throwing dodgeballs at each other.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is really good. You should check it out. First person arena type game. Really good sort of cyberpunk look and music feel and thumping. And he named everybody the bots. If you're playing against bots, 'cause it's online, but if it's not full, you're going to get bots. He named them all after Boston game developers. So I am in there. Chiro's in there. We'll hit you with our balls.
And I'll reach out to him. I'll see if he wants to come on the show sometime.
Yeah.
Talk about his game. Eureka! Ow! My first item in the news is all about programming enemy AI. This was an article written by Patricia Hernandez for Kotaku. And basically what it was they did kind of some tests on enemy AI because people complain about how stupid AI is all the time. But when you make AI smart, it makes people really, really mad. For instance, they do a particular experiment. They have, one player against multiple bad guys. And if the bad guys actually try to flank you and do things that smart enemies would do, it makes the game more difficult to play. And periodically, the way to solve that was just to have the AI purposefully make bad decisions, like running out into the line of fire and doing things. They even tried putting voice cues in so that like the enemy, like if the enemy even announces what they're doing, I'm reloading, or, you know, I'm going to try to flank him out loud. Like still that extra AI makes players angry, and makes the game not as much fun. It's almost kind of bad, but have we developed an environment where there are certain tropes in gaming that we get frustrated when they're gone? Like, do we need our enemies to be slightly stupid so that we can feel superior to them?
Yes.
I mean,
no question. Yes.
But at the same time, you've got games like Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 where, you know, you're really trying to mess with people. Is there a balance between this? I'm going to make it difficult for you and I'm going to make it enjoyable for you. Where is the balance?
It's all if you ever played like chess with a kid, you know, there's an art to making it look like you accidentally lost. That's what we want. We want something that looks like it was trying really hard and it was clever, but we beat it. We just want it to look that way. Just enough.
Isn't that a little disappointing though? Like intellectually, that's what we want?
It's not at all surprising. I don't know. I mean,
well, I know that one of the things I used to like to do when I ran Dungeons and Dragons games back in the day before kids, like what I wanted what looked like a no-win situation for the players. I wanted to get them somewhere where I had them completely convinced that they were going to die and still have a way for them to pull it out. And if they weren't able to, if they started failing on rolls, like I would start fudging my dice behind the screen. And so I recognize the desire to make people win, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like, it's kind of sad. I do get frustrated watching an enemy zombie run back and forth across the same path every time because that's what it's programmed to do. But at the same time, I don't necessarily enjoy the frustration of once a camp is alerted to my presence, everyone going to the most strategically advantageous position in that camp.
You want them going to that position with like 80% efficacy, just so enough that you can be like, yeah, they're trying to do the right thing, but I'm a little bit cleverer than them.
So anyway, I'll provide a link to this article. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of sad intellectually that that's where we are, but at the same time, I recognize it. So the next article I kind of wanted to talk about, there was a really amazing article in Polygon by Russ Pitts about, and I don't know if you saw this article or not, it did get some good press, about how Hidden Path managed to get Defense Grid 2 made after the runaround on Defense Grid 1. Did you read this at all, Ziba?
No.
So just for the audience to know, I think most of the people who listen to this show are familiar with the concept of Defense Grid. It was a tower defense game that came out, and it surprised everybody by how cheap and how good it was. Well, there's actually a pretty long story behind that. The people who made it originally planned to have it come out on Xbox Live for a really cheap price, and it was going to be an Xbox Live exclusive for a while, or, you know, they were kind of building it for that. But then the Microsoft team changed hands, and suddenly Microsoft wasn't that hot for the game anymore. And in order to get it made, they brought it out on the PC, or in order to like make some extra money, they brought it out on the PC, and then Xbox kind of raised the price of it in Xbox Live. And all in all, the game ended up not making any money despite being incredibly successful. And then the article I'm going to link to talks about how Hidden Path got some very great breaks to make Defense Grid 2 happen. This article points out that about 80% of whether a game gets made or doesn't get made, or whether a good studio has the potential to make another game, is based on the politics of funding and publishing. Have you run into any publishing walls with the work that you've tried to do, Ziba?
I've run into walls when I've tried to grab large sums of money. But as long as I keep a project scope within my means, or maybe just a tiny bit beyond, an indie does whatever an indie wants. But we end up doing something, smaller scale than a big Xbox Live game.
There's been a lot of fantastic stuff that's been coming out in the indie field lately because of digital distribution, because a lot of big game designers are leaving the AAA space and moving to smaller products where they don't have the baggage of building, carrying a publisher or having a huge IP and or engine behind it. Is there something that you view as being like, I'm having trouble coming up with the question here. If you were to move from the space you're in indie gaming to a more publisher-driven space, what would be the most terrifying thing to you about that?
Well, in that scenario you pose, as someone with a background in software, I make software. I can promise you, if you give me a bunch of money and I say I'm going to make X thing, I can make that thing on that budget generally and in that time. And if the deal comes that I have to make this thing and it has to earn back Y amount of dollars, that's not my area of expertise. I focus on making a great thing, and I can't predict exactly how much it's going to make. So that's scary to take a bunch of outside money. But I think more the reality of what's happening is not that an indie like myself would go to a publisher. In fact, I have been published with Adult Swim. But that's because I think publishers are coming to indies and they still call themselves publishers, but the truth is they're marketing partners. A lot of these deals, they're not money up front, they're rev share. And it's not about getting things on shelves, it's about getting articles and placement in digital stores and rankings. It's weird. This word publisher doesn't mean what it used to.
It's essentially like SEO for games, right? Search engine optimization. Do you think that this has become a little bit of a scam of sorts? Like, is it like protection money, that you're paying to get your game to the places it needs? It'd be a shame if your game never got heard of,
I think it's the bigger question is, do a lot of these publishers actually have the power to get your game that kind of attention? Because there are very few channels that I think it's like, oh yeah, because this came from X publisher, I will buy it. Usually now you're free to hear about the games in places like this, and so many places that's where it comes from. Which is why I was happy to work with Adult Swim, because they are built. They're a publisher built with a specific sort of brand identity and set of expectations for what comes from them, and therefore they do have an audience that says, I like what Adult Swim publishes.
Right.
You can't say that for a lot of other publishers. Maybe some are, like Devolver. They've put out a number of interesting games, so it sort of they become almost tastemakers. It's almost sort of a role that should be filled by critics or magazines or stores. A publisher may be at their best when they're putting out a consistent set of like-minded and quality games.
Do you think it's kind of like a community manager sort of position? Is it kind of like trying to shape your audience?
Community and sort of backend too. A lot of games these days will live and die by their visibility in a store. If you're doing mobile, you need to be featured, or you need to be free to play and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars buying your way up the charts. There's always exceptions, but you want to work with a publisher who has good relations and has a good track record getting these featured spots. You want you want that top banner on Steam. You want someone who's going to be able to negotiate your way into a high profile sale or something like that.
And how does that work? Like, how do you get to be top banner in Steam? Is is that something that is just purchased? Are there like 3 or 4 considerations? No. Are if you're offering a good enough deal, if you're, friends with the right people, or if your game is superior enough, are there like 3 or 4 different channels on this?
I don't know. I don't know the exacts on that, and I've never heard anything shady about getting those top things on Steam. I do know that a lot of what Steam purports is performance based. Is your game selling?
Yeah.
And so, I'm not. My argument about getting a publisher's not going to get you into that top capsule on Steam, but you need to get a certain critical mass of sales before you're ever even going to be considered for that top spot.
Right. Well, anyway, I'll provide a link to this article. I think it really kind of shows you a side of the gaming industry that most people don't consider. It'll also make you interested that there are some good guy venture capitalists out there in the gaming world. My next article that I'm bringing up, this was also on Kotaku. It says we're buying more PC games than we can play. This is not a surprise to anyone who listens to this show, or to anyone who is a PC gamer. I don't think of any substance. But basically, they did a survey of 1,400 gamers about their habits, and they found that 79% of them enjoyed the feeling of getting a deal. Surprise. The average gamer bought 60% of their gamers on sale. That doesn't surprise me either. The average gamer purchased 11 to 25 games in the past year and has not played 40% of those games. Doesn't surprise me as well, but I think I think to a console gamer that might be a little surprising. 30% of gamers have 50 or more games in their pile of shame. In their unplayed game stack. 30% of gamers that they surveyed had 50 or more games. I'm there. You pick up enough Humble Bundles, you shop the Steam sales enough, and you have tons of games that you can touch. And this was another interesting thing. The average gamer buys just 20% of their games at full price.
I bought like one full price game in the last 3 years. Yeah,
I don't feel there's much need to. There's so much good AAA quality stuff that I've picked up for, $15-20 that I don't need to do it. So they also looked at a group called the compulsive collector. And this was 30% of the gamers surveyed were compulsive collectors with the pile of shame at least 50 high. The average collector has roughly 100 games in their backlog. They play games for 20 hours a week and spend 10 hours a week engaging in gaming media. They have bought 26 to 50 games in the past 12 months, 80% of them on sale, and just 10% of them new, and have not played 60% of the games that they purchased.
What'd you call that category?
The compulsive collector.
I mean, statistically, what you just said, I fit in there. I'm not going to admit to being compulsive collecting. No.
I'm there, but that's just because, I'm eternally... I pick up Humble Bundles pretty much every time because I can pay a pittance for a bunch of great games. And then I look at the Steam sales, and if there's something cool and already an indie on sale, I'll pick it up. But yeah, I have easily 100 games I haven't touched on my Steam list that I just look at it and go, yeah, I should play that sometime.
It's too negative a title. There's no shame. Well, there's very little shame in what we're doing. I think we deserve a better title for that. I mean, we're savvy, we're future thinking. The internet's going to go down entirely at some point, and you and I are going to be the ones who have a bunch of games to play for the rest of our lives.
No, we won't, because we bought them all on Steam. Oh, we can
just download them now. Yes. Download them now.
And put everything on a hard drive and play it all offline. I gotcha. The last thing I'm going to talk about is Comcast is not authorizing HBO Go on PlayStation consoles. I have been a big fan of net neutrality. I've had a lot of people argue with me that it is unnecessary. And here we have a prime example of a company that is about to own about 70% of all the internet, home internet accounts, and they're saying they're not going to deliver a particular service. This is something I think everybody should pay attention to. To have HBO Go, you have to subscribe to HBO. So basically what they're doing here is they're saying, we don't want to deliver HBO content to anyone who is not directly paying us. In other words, doesn't matter if you're getting it through DirecTV, you can't watch HBO Go on our internet. I think this is something to pay attention to. I think it's a big statement, and I think if we can stop the Comcast and Time Warner merger, we need to. So
I think we need to launch some blimps and bounce our own internet off it. Forget these guys.
Well, and I had a friend, Spencer actually, who wondered if our town was going to get some kind of public access gigabit network thing going. And there's actually a petition around to do it. People can say all day long that government intervention is always detrimental to markets, but I think that if there is a internet utility that I can buy into, I would be happy to step away. I'm not using Comcast. Comcast is in my area. I have another company that I use for my internet. I'm 50-50 on whether the quality is great, but I'm certainly not going to step over to Comcast to try to fix it. I think that there's a good argument to be made when there is a lack of competition for bringing in a government actor to provide some competition, to provide service that a oligarchical company won't provide. And that is the most political thing I will say on this show, because I don't want to segregate any of my audience.
Free Mandela.
No on Prop 8.
Inspiration.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the games that you've been working on. What is your capacity? Like what are you working on as far as Elegy for a Dead World? What's your role in the production of that game?
It's sort of game design and tech. I've been sharing the game design responsibilities sort of equally with Ichiro, and Elliot Borenstein has been working with tech on me.
And
working with me on tech.
That's all right. We don't worry about nouns and direct objects here. So what, where is there something in the game that what have you brought to the table? What is there something in the creation of the game that is distinctly you?
So I think some of this stems from one of my failed projects many years ago called Moon Taxi, which is it's on Xbox Live Indie Games. You can get it. It's this strange little thing that was just a bigger concept than I could execute. This is my first official title published. And so basically I paid a bunch of undergraduates to write stories from the perspective of a person riding in the back of a taxi going to the moon. And then you play the game and you're dodging asteroids, flying this taxi, and every level is a different story that someone is telling you. This original narrated bit of science fiction is supposedly coming out of the passenger in your taxi as you're flying around. I really like this idea of bringing people's stories into games so directly, because that's what everybody wants, right? All this user-generated content, all this, Minecraft. It's all about people participating and telling their own stories. So let's cut right to it and just actually have them tell stories.
I've always said that the next, and EverQuest Next is doing it, is that if you want to make a really interesting world, have some kind of tool creation facility and then some kind of moderator to bring, crowdsourced content into your game. But at the same time, I sometimes wonder, is that cheating? Is it not fair to take someone else's creative juices and then capitalize on it? Should you be paying them? What level does crowdsourcing become exploitation?
So I don't know about that. So I think there's a big difference between just getting content from people to give to the rest of your audience to be the heart of your game versus having the creative experience, the fulfillment of the ability to create and share be the core experience, which is what we're trying to do. So we're actually putting a lot of work into making you able to enjoy creating. So some of the details I didn't get into on Elegy, each of the worlds you go to are constructed visually from Ichiro and my interpretation of a different poem by a British Romantic author. So we chose to sort of texture these things with these very specific choices that we're trying to make carefully to inspire people. And so I feel no shame in being a part of sharing everybody's free work that they did for us when we're working so hard to bring the best out of people.
Gotcha. And do you think are you going to have some kind of way to share the, like, is there going to be any kind of like wall of, like, is there going to be like, remember the little poetry magazines you used to get when you were a kid? You know, are you going to do anything like that are you going to like collect the poems that people write about the cultures and like put them out there?
Right. So here's the deal. So every time you finish writing in a world, your story goes automatically up to Steamworks. These are Steam Workshop items. And so they go into that infrastructure, and you are presented with a menu to view the most popular stories. So half the joy, the first joy this game is creating, the second joy is that after you've looked and thought and dreamed about this world, you then get to see the whole thing through someone else's lens, someone else's perspective. And this was something that came up in development where we were just going to have people enjoy our story, read what we want to do. So we drew all the stuff out on paper. Then we had a friend come by and we said, hey, look what we drew. What do you think this story is? And he looked at it, he went through, and he told us a completely different story. It was consistent with what he was looking at. It made sense. It was great, but it had nothing to do with the story that we were trying to tell. And we realized that that's a really interesting, unique joy that we were experiencing of seeing through someone else's eyes in a sort of personal way of this is how they would tell this story. And that's what we're also trying to share with this.
And I really think that's awesome. Like, there's something about that that's really special. Are you planning on more worlds? Have you pondered, like, you know, can you have some kind of tool for bringing more into the storyline on a later date by creating more worlds?
Right. I think right now, you know, this has been a sort of an experiment for us, and we need to. We've got 3 worlds reasonably polished right now, and you can tell a million stories in each of those 3 worlds. So we need to measure how this lands with people. But yeah, there's always opportunity for more. But we want to do something compact and very interesting.
So and this is the reason why I reached out to Dejobaan, is because the whole concept here really appealed to me. And then, like, I didn't realize, like, I wasn't aware of my indie history, and I didn't realize the other games that you guys had worked on. So, like, Drunken Robot Pornography is photography is like this complete divergent from the art house game to this bullet hell heavy action kind of thing. How often do you see indie companies doing such drastic back and forths with the style of game that they're making?
Well, this for Dejobaan, it's, you know, you pointed out Monster Loves You earlier, and that was another huge change from, you know, before it, which is a brightly colored, fast falling, you know, skydiving game. I think that's what a lot of indies want, is this freedom to explore everything that's in their heads. And if they're passionate about it, they're going to try and find a way to make it. You know, Itai at Untamed Games, he was in the Experimental Game Workshop last year and in the IGF this year with Mushroom 11, which is this really interesting experimental moody game set in this sort of, you know, wasteland-looking thing. His game before that was published by Chilingo, Rope Rescue. It's this brightly colored bird puzzle game. So I think that's part of the dream of going indie, is getting to do it all.
What, just out of curiosity, is there a potential release date or quarter for Elegy?
It depends on how well testing goes. We're going to have our planned first real public playable is at PAX East, so we're going to get a lot of people's hands on there.
And what's been the life cycle of the creation of this game?
Sort of sporadic. This was Ichiro had 5 days. We're both doing way too many games. He has about 5 days between finishing one conference and starting the next. Didn't want to pick up one of his long-term projects and said, hey, let's just make something in these 5 days that I don't have planned for. And then we'll finish it in these 5 days and be done with it and never think about it again or something like that. And, that didn't really... It worked too well.
Yeah.
So we worked on it for 10 days.
So
walked away for a few months, and yeah.
So were you consciously trying to do kind of the Amnesia Fortnite thing? Was it a...
It was called, the code name was Pickled Ginger, so it was a palate cleanser. Just, something, do a little something different.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I never played but I heard good things about it. Tell me a little bit about that game and why it got so much popularity.
Well, it does a really good job of sort of letting Ichiro put some of his almost free association humor into it, where you have this world of brightly colored objects that you're falling. Basically, the game is you're in future Boston, and a popular sport is to jump off buildings, fall down, and while flipping people off or high-fiving them. So you're dodging buildings as you fall in this big futuristic landscape, and they're very big, brightly colored blocks. And it's a pretty good simulation of this sort of adrenaline of falling and dodging and making sure you throw your parachute to land at just the right time. But it also fills itself with the same charm that people do like about Drunken Robot Pornography. These enjoyable music, this weird, I think one of my favorite moments in that game is you go through the menu, you're picking these various levels, and you pick one of these levels, and it's not so much a level, it's just sort of a guided meditation where he talks you through taking a deep breath, closing your eyes, in your happy place. It's a good theatrical, entertaining bundle of excitement and joy.
Why don't we see more of that? Why are games taking themselves so seriously sometimes?
Maybe, in the AAA space, maybe that has to do with sort of a necessity to avoid risk. But Double Fine does a great job of whimsy.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to get them back on. They've had a lot going on lately. I want to hear about it. Okay, I think we've been going about an hour. Just for everybody listening, we do have some game keys. If you are interested in some in trying out some of the games we've discussed today, please send us an email. Let us know what you think about the show. Leave an iTunes review for us, please, please, please. We haven't had any iTunes reviews in a while, and I think those really help push you up the ranks. And I'd like to get new people listening to the show. But if you are interested in a key for Drunken Robot Pornography, Monster Loves You, or Girls Love Robots, Girls Like Robots, I say love too often. Do other people do that? You
never say love too often.
But do other people do that when they talk about your game?
All the time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was another game that it kind of confuses me too. I met a guy who made Robots Love Ice Cream. Did you see that game?
Yes, I have.
And so it confused me.
And there's the studio Robot Loves Kitty.
Oh, really?
That made Legend of Dungeon.
Oh, I downloaded that. I have it installed. I need to play it.
It's cool, and they're cool people. You should talk to them.
Anyway, so yeah, Drunken Robot Pornography, Monster Loves You, Girls Like Robots. I have keys for all these games. If you are interested in any of them, please send an email. I was informed recently when I left the Dead Workers Party Network a few months ago. I went on to the Core Elements page, and I thought I made the email address correct. I did not. I did two things wrong. I changed the link, but I didn't change the text that was on the link, so it still mentioned Dead Workers Party. And then the other thing I did was I left out, the new email address is coreelementsshow@gmail.com, and I forgot the first S, so it was Core Element Show. So anyway, I've been sufficiently humiliated by the people on Twitter, and it should be fixed now. But send us an email, leave us an iTunes review. I would love to get some keys to you. There are some great games here. I probably will stream some Drunken Robot Pornography sometime in the near future because I had so much fun for the few minutes I did it before the show. Anyway, big things coming up. Game Vid Expo in Atlanta in 2 weeks. We've got Captain Sparkles coming. We've got Sunday, Lancey Poo. We've got So Hinky and Lasercorn from Smosh Games. We have I Am Spoon. We've got The Creatures coming. We've got Good and Seth Bling and Blame the Controller and Aurelian and Basher's coming. We've got all kinds of great game video content creators who are going to be at the show. Please come and check it out. GameVidExpo.com in Atlanta last weekend of March. Ziba, it was fun having you on again.
It was fun being here.
And I guess we're going to have to get Ichiro on some other time because I really want to hear about some of the stuff he's worked on. Yeah, we'll talk with you soon. You've been listening to Core Elements, exploring gaming one element at a time. A listener-supported podcast. See the show notes or get more information at coreelementshow.com or leave us a voicemail at 256-763-0455.